Previously on the Mysterious Twins Part 6. A call came in, and a male voice said, "The same teeth that the dog uses to play with her child are the same ones he uses to bite. If you don't pay up at exactly 5 p.m. today, we will do the next on our agenda, be warned." "Hello, my beautiful estranged wife. It's been a long time," a Yoruba adage said. "If a lie has gone for 20 years, the truth will catch up with it in just one day." Mysterious Twins Part 7.
At the hospital.
Upon arriving at the hospital, they were all shocked to see that Sasa, who had left the hospital healthy just a few hours ago, had been rushed back in an almost lifeless state. The initial tests revealed that Dr. Sasa had suffered from food poisoning. Patricia, consumed by fear and anger, grabbed Jack by the collar, demanding, "Why did you want to kill my child? I know you've been staying out late, and my daughter hasn't even quarreled with you about it. But do you have to end her life just to move on?" Jack, stunned and at a loss for words, looked at her with tears welling up in his eyes. One of the passing nurses noticed the commotion and intervened, urging Patricia to calm down and not take the law into her own hands. Jack, his voice trembling, pleaded, "Mama, I swear I'm innocent. We all ate the same food I cooked. How could I possibly poison only her meal when she dished out her food herself from the pot that was on the dining table?" Patricia, her voice breaking, responded, "Pray nothing happens to my child, because if it does, I will make sure you rot in jail. That's a promise." The nurse, seeing the tension escalating, guided Patricia to a chair and spoke gently, "Mrs. Patricia, please try to stay calm. We need to focus on Sassie's health right now. Accusations won't help her. Let's wait for more detailed results from the doctors." Jack, still standing there with tears streaming down his face, felt a deep sense of helplessness. He replayed the events of the day in his mind, trying to understand how this could have happened. He knew he had to prove his innocence, not just to Patricia, but for the sake of Sasa and their family. As they waited for further updates, Jack sat in the corner, his mind racing. Patricia, though still angry and suspicious, couldn't help but feel the fear and helplessness wash over her. She watched the doctors and nurses move swiftly, hoping that Sasa would pull through. After what felt like an eternity, the doctor approached them with a serious expression. "We've stabilized her for now, but we need to run more tests to identify the exact toxin. It's crucial to know how she ingested it. We need to ask some questions about the food and anything else she might have come into contact with." Jack nodded, eager to help. "Please, ask me anything. We need to find out what happened." The doctor began to ask about the ingredients and preparation of the meal, where the food was purchased, and if there were any other substances Sasa might have been exposed to. Meanwhile, Patricia sat by Sassie's bedside, holding her hand and praying for her recovery. The tension between her and Jack was palpable, but for now, their focus was on Sassie's health. As the night wore on, the hospital staff continued their efforts, and a sense of tentative hope began to replace the initial panic. Both Patricia and Jack knew that they needed to get to the bottom of this, not only to clear Jack's name, but to ensure that Sasa would be safe and healthy again.
At the police station.
Inspector Pella was in the midst of a crucial meeting with his team members working on the JJ case. Reviewing the data gathered from the CCTV footage at the hospital, he spoke with determination. "From what we've seen so far, it looks like some insiders, possibly hospital staff, are collaborating with the criminals. We need to plant undercover agents within the hospital." Sergeant Mike nodded in agreement. The 40-second blackout couldn't have happened without inside help. From what I gathered, the hospital hasn't experienced a power outage in the past 20 years. The power was restored automatically, without any repairs, and we still don't know why it happened. Inspector Pella leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. How are we even sure that the person in the hoodie, holding the dagger, is the same one who stabbed JJ with a kitchen knife? We need more eyes and ears in that hospital. He turned to Sergeant Daniel. Daniel, I want you to work with Sergeant Eliza as undercover agents at the hospital. Having two of our people inside will give us a better chance to unravel this mess quickly and bring the culprit to justice. As they were concluding the meeting, a sergeant entered the room, his face serious. Inspector Pella, you're needed at the reception immediately. Pella quickly made his way to the reception area, where a young man sat, looking anxious. As soon as he saw Pella, he stood up and said, Inspector, I need to talk to you privately. They moved to a private office, and the young man began to speak, his voice trembling. My name is Oliver. I've been on the run since JJ's death, but I can't live with this anymore. I'm here to turn myself in and provide whatever information I can to help. Inspector Pella's eyes widened slightly. All right, Oliver, start from the beginning. What do you know about the stabbing of JJ? Oliver took a deep breath. I worked as a janitor at the hospital. The night JJ was stabbed, I noticed some unusual activities. I saw a man in a black hoodie talking to one of the nurses. I couldn't hear everything, but it sounded like they were planning something. Pella's interest was piqued. Which nurse was it? Can you describe them? Oliver nodded. She was tall, with short blonde hair. I'm new at that hospital, so I can't really recognize her. Inspector Pella scribbled down the details. What else did you see? Oliver continued. I followed the man in the black hoodie and noticed and saw him enter JJ's private ward. Shortly after, there was a blackout. I rushed over, but the lights came back on before I could get there. I saw the man in the hoodie running out of the room. I panicked and hid, and in the morning, JJ had been stabbed with a black kitchen knife on his chest, and it was left there. I knew I should have reported it, but I was scared. Pella leaned back in his chair, processing the information. Thank you for coming forward, Oliver. This information is invaluable. We will protect you, but I need you to stay here and make a formal statement. This might be the break we need. Oliver nodded, relieved. I'll do whatever it takes to help. Dr. Sasa is a wonderful person, and she didn't deserve to suffer this kind of loss. Inspector Pella left the room, instructing his team to take Oliver's statement and ensure his protection. He knew they were getting closer to the truth. They needed to identify the nurse and her involvement in the case. He called Sergeant Daniel and Sergeant Eliza. We have new intel. Your undercover mission at the hospital is more critical than ever. Focus on the nurses, especially the ones with blonde hair, and any other suspicious activities. Stay alert and report back any findings immediately. As the team mobilized, Pella couldn't help but feel a sense of urgency. JJ's family deserved justice, and he was determined to uncover the truth and bring those responsible to account. The investigation was intensifying, and every piece of information brought them one step closer to solving the case.
At Sasa's house.
Patricia came home to pick a few things and unlock the door with her spare key. As she moved towards her room, she heard Zara talking on the phone, discussing JJ. She paused, eavesdropping. We need to find out if JJ is alive, Zara said. Sasa had a conversation with her husband Jack today, and she said, what if JJ wasn't dead? I want to believe there's more to that statement. We need to act smart. Remember, my twin sister Sasa may be a dwarf physically, but she is not a dwarf mentally. Zara ended the call. Patricia was taken aback by what she heard. Questions flooded her mind. Was Zara involved with the criminals? What did she mean by JJ possibly being alive? She decided to quietly monitor her daughter. "Zara, I'm back home," Patricia called out, snapping out of her thoughts. Zara came out of her room and greeted her mother. "Is Sasa all right?" "Yes, she's getting better. I just came home to freshen up and pick up a few things," Patricia responded casually, not revealing the full extent of Sasa's condition. "Okay, Mom. I'm praying for her speedy recovery," Zara replied. Patricia entered her room, pondering the conversation she overheard. She decided to check Zara's diary, suspecting it might contain more clues. She wrote a list of items on a sheet of paper and called Zara to help get them from the grocery store, knowing it would keep her out of the house for about 2 hours. Once Zara left, Patricia began searching for the diary. She looked in Zara's room, the sitting room, the kitchen, but it was nowhere to be found. Frustration mounted as she thought, "She's always with that diary. How can it be out of sight? Oh, God protect Sasa. I'm getting scared by the day about her safety. Why does everyone want her dead? Is Zara part of this?" Patricia muttered to herself. She returned to Zara's room and lifted the mattress, but still couldn't find the diary. Exhausted, she sat in the sitting room, thinking. Then she remembered seeing Zara come out of the utility room the previous day when Sasa was looking for her. She rushed there and started searching through the laundry basket under some abandoned clothes. "Jesus!" she exclaimed, finding the diary hidden beneath the clothes. How could she keep her diary in a place like this? As she was about to pick the diary, Zara walked into the utility room. "I've been looking everywhere for you since I got back. What are you doing here, Mom?" Patricia quickly composed herself, hiding back the diary. "I was just looking for some old clothes I might need to take to the hospital for Sasa. What took you so long at the store?" Zara eyed her mother suspiciously but shrugged. "There was a long queue. Did you find what you were looking for?" "Not yet, but I'll manage, but I must head back to the hospital," Patricia said, trying to sound casual. Patricia's mind raced as she left the house. She knew she had to read that diary to uncover the truth about Zara's involvement and what was really happening with JJ. Joy's case. Joy could see the pain in Tony's eyes and knew she was in deep trouble. She fell to her knees, pleading for mercy. "I was about to get married to the love of my life when I heard about your stardom," she began, her voice shaking. "I watched your interview on TV when you asked about your marital status. Your response got me thinking, and I decided to explore what I could achieve with my physical beauty." Tony's eyes narrowed. "And what exactly did I say?" "You said you were not married, nor engaged, and were seriously searching for a good girl who could help you manage your stardom," Joy continued, tears streaming down her face. "I thought, how could you achieve so much without a woman by your side? I decided I must marry you. With the little money I could siphon from my fiancé under the pretext of wedding plans, I started living a fake life to entice you. I lied about arriving from the US, being the CEO of Cayley International Bank, and the contract that brought you to the hotel where we first met. I drugged you to have my way and later lied about being pregnant." Tony's expression darkened. The pregnancy test results, the DNA test results, all fake. "Yes," Joy admitted, sobbing. "I wasn't in love with you, and you were suspicious of me. So, I opted out of the marriage that early to cover up. I demanded a percentage of your wealth because I come from a low background and wanted to maintain a certain level of affluence. Tony, please forgive me. I was never pregnant." Tony's anger was palpable. "I'll give you 2 options. get arrested and face charges for damages, or return my money. Joy looked stricken. I don't want to face the law, and I don't have that amount of money to give you. Please, have mercy. Tony's voice was cold. I saw the post about your upcoming wedding on social media. Is that the new victim? You think you can rob Peter to pay Paul? Joy pleaded for 1 month grace to pay up, if she's granted freedom. Tony said, 1 month to return the money. It's not a good deal at all. He left the darkroom, slamming the door behind him. Joy was left in complete darkness, her mind racing. She had no idea where she was, and the isolation was terrifying. She could hear the faint sound of water dripping and the occasional scurrying of rodents. She thought about escaping, but had no idea where she was or how heavily guarded the place might be. Then she said, I must find a way out. I need to get the money somehow, but my options are limited. Bobby's house. Bobby stared at the phone, his eyes wide with disbelief. Who is JJ? He asked, his voice tinged with suspicion. Why do you have a contact named JJ? Kamsi's mind raced as she tried to think of a plausible explanation. Before she could respond, she saw Bobby's finger hovering over the call button. She lunged to grab the phone from him, but it was too late. A male voice on the other end answered, Why are you calling back? You have broken the edge, and the snake must bite. Kamsi quickly cut the call, her hands trembling. She pushed Bobby out of her way, panic evident in her eyes. Bobby staggered, but managed to sit on the couch, his mind reeling. Kamsi, my sister is a criminal, he muttered to himself. What is she up to this time? Was that name a coincidence or a tag for something? What should I do now? I hope she didn't have a hand in Sass's case. Determined to get to the bottom of things, Bobby decided he needed access to her phone. He walked to her room and knocked gently. Kamsi, it's me. Open the door. Go away, Bobby, she shouted from inside. Just leave me alone. I'll be fine. Please, let's think of a way out together, Bobby pleaded. I want to help you. If you hadn't made your wife a signatory to your account, you could have helped me with the money I needed to sort things out. Bobby, just go away and don't talk to me. Bobby continued to plead with her gently. Kamsi, I'm your brother. Let me help. Please, talk to me. After a long pause, the door creaked open, revealing Kamsi, her eyes red from crying. Bobby placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. I promise to help however I can, he said softly. Just tell me what's going on. Kamsi collapsed onto the bed, sobbing uncontrollably. Bobby stood up. Let me get you a drink, he said, heading to the kitchen. He poured 2 glasses of wine, adding a dosage of the sleeping tablets he had from when he was sick into Kamsi's glass. I must get my hands on her phone, he thought to himself. This game is up. Returning to the room, he handed Kamsi her glass. They sipped their drinks in silence for a few minutes, the tension in the room palpable. As Kamsi's eyes grew heavy and her body relaxed, Bobby knew the tablets were taking effect. Soon, she was fast asleep. Bobby took a deep breath and gently pried the phone from Kamsi's hand. He quickly scanned through her messages and call history, looking for any clues. The name JJ appeared multiple times, along with several cryptic messages and missed calls from the same unknown number. His heart raced as he pieced together the puzzle. Kamsi, what have you gotten yourself into? He whispered. He found some text messages from JJ. That this one got his attention at the usual place tonight. We need to discuss the next steps. Sassa must go down. At the prison. One of the inmates rushed towards the official's office, her face etched with urgency. We need help, Mrs. Tawler is dying, she shouted. Two officials immediately sprang into action, following the inmate to the scene. On sighting Mrs. Tawler, they knew they had to act fast. She was pale and barely conscious. They quickly called for a stretcher and transported her to the prison's infirmary. The doctor on duty, assessing the severity of her condition, urgently instructed them to take her to the state hospital, where they had better facilities and more hands to handle the crisis. The driver sped down the lonely expressway, the ambulance's siren piercing the night. Suddenly, a black SUV swerved in front of them, forcing the ambulance to a halt. Before the officials could react, armed men in masks and hoodies surrounded the vehicle. They yanked open the doors, disarmed the officials, and pushed them and the driver out onto the road. Mrs. Tawler, still lying on the stretcher, was whisked into the SUV, which sped off, leaving the bewildered officials shouting for help on the deserted highway. As the SUV tore down the road, Mrs. Tawler's eyes fluttered open. She glanced around, then gave a weak smile. "Call my daughter," she murmured. "She needs to know I'm out. You guys did a good job." One of the masked men turned towards her. "I lost one of my phones during the operation. Give me your daughter's number again." Mrs. Tawler, now more alert, rattled off the number. "Here, take it. Where's my change of clothes and the wig I asked for?" "Everything's in the trunk," the man replied. "You can change once we get to the safe house." As the SUV sped on, the driver noticed a strange noise coming from the engine. He pulled over, stepped out, and lifted the hood to inspect the problem. Just then, flashing blue lights illuminated the scene, and several policemen surrounded the vehicle. The men in the SUV were caught off guard as armed officers converged on them. One of the police officers, a sergeant, approached Mrs. Tawler. "Mrs. Tawler, you are under arrest for attempting to escape from prison." She tried to feign illness again, clutching her stomach and groaning, but the sergeant shook his head. "Your little act won't work this time. We have everything on tape. This car is equipped with CCTV cameras, and the people you thought were helping you are undercover police officers." Mrs. Tawler's face fell. She realized the gravity of her situation. She raised her hands to her head, a gesture of surrender and despair. "Please, cooperate with us," the sergeant continued. "Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Mrs. Tawler's mind raced as she was handcuffed and led to one of the police cars. At the hospital. Since Patricia had returned to the hospital, she had been gently rubbing Sass's palm and murmuring inaudibly. Suddenly, Sassa stirred and weakly said, "Mom, are you worried?" Patricia, startled, looked at her daughter and said, "Oh, you're awake." Sassa smiled faintly. Patricia quickly called the doctors, who rushed in to check on Sassa. Meanwhile, one of the nurses informed Jack that Sassa had come out of her coma. Overjoyed, Jack rushed to Sass's room to see her. As he entered, Patricia immediately sent him out. "You must be arrested for this wickedness," she accused him. "Do you want to kill my daughter on her birthday? Jack, you won't go scot-free." Sassa, bewildered, asked, "Mom, what happened?" Patricia explained. "You took ill after eating food poisoning, and the only thing you ate was the meal Jack cooked for you yesterday. He said it was his tradition to cook for you on your birthday. He was the only one in the kitchen all through. He even refused my helping hand." Sassa looked shocked and confused. Patricia, filled with anger, pulled out her phone and called the police. Two officers arrived shortly to take Jack in for questioning. "Please torture him well," Patricia demanded. "I want to know why he wants my child dead." Sassa, still in a daze and unsure of what to believe, decided to play along. As Jack was being taken away, Dr. Hakim, who had been suspiciously observing Nurse Joyce, caught her on a phone call. She was saying, "Yes, Mum. After her surprise birthday celebration at the conference hall, I gave her a glass of wine that I had already poisoned. It's a slow-acting poison, taking effect after 4 hours. She was later rushed back to the hospital almost lifeless, but she's fine now. We lost the attack again. I will surely relaunch later." Dr. Hakim quickly recorded part of the conversation and alerted the police. "I didn't start recording on time," he admitted, "but I have enough evidence here." The police swiftly moved in and arrested Nurse Joyce. When the news reached Sasa, she immediately asked her mother, "Mom, please get my husband released. He's innocent." Patricia, realizing her mistake, felt a deep pang of guilt for her quick judgment. Patricia hurried to the police station, where she met Jack, who was visibly distressed but relieved to see her. "Jack, I'm so sorry," Patricia said, her voice trembling. "I judged you wrongly. Please forgive me." Sasa couldn't shake off the nagging feeling that there were still pieces of the puzzle missing. She whispered to herself, why would Nurse Joyce do this? And who was she talking to?
At Sasa's house.
As soon as Patricia left for the hospital, Zara rushed to the utility room, her heart pounding if it would burst from her chest. She tore through the laundry basket, her hands trembling, until she found her diary buried under the clothes. "Oh, thank God, she didn't notice this," she muttered, flipping through the pages to ensure everything was still intact. Her thoughts raced as she tried to make sense of her mother's sudden interest. What's Mom really looking for? I'm sure she's hiding something from me. I hope Sasa is fine. What could possibly have happened to her? She pondered the recent chaos, knowing that Sasa's sudden illness had derailed her plans and stolen Jack away from her. Just as she was about to close the diary, her phone rang. She picked it up, and a cold male voice spoke.
"If Gigi is alive, consider yourself dead."
Zara's blood ran cold. She quickly composed herself and replied, "Sir, I did my part perfectly well, and I was the one who alerted the office about the incident, so they could act on the information. I think we need to interrogate the guys we paid for the operation. My side is tight, sir." The call ended abruptly, leaving Zara with a mix of fear and determination. She held her chest, feeling the weight of her secrets pressing down on her. Taking a deep breath, she opened her diary and began to update it, her hand shaking slightly as she wrote. May 25th. Things are spiraling out of control. Sasa's sudden illness complicates everything. Patricia is suspicious, and the boss threatened to kill me. I need to tighten my grip on the situation and make sure no loose ends remain. Jack is still a pawn in this game.
At Bobby's house.
Kamsi was still fast asleep from the sleeping tablet Bobby had spiked her drink with. Knowing he had limited time, Bobby locked her room from the outside to prevent her from interrupting his plan if she woke up prematurely. He switched on his laptop and quickly transferred all the data from Kamsi's phone to his system. His hands moved swiftly across the keyboard, eyes darting from screen to screen. Once the data transfer was complete, Bobby made a call. "I'll send more data to you. That may be of help," he said tersely before ending the call. He carefully hid the phone and unlocked Kamsi's room. To his surprise, Kamsi was awake, sitting on her bed and writing in her diary. Kamsi looked up, startled. "Why did you lock me in?" she demanded. Bobby forced a calm smile. "I wanted you to have a long sleep. You look stressed." Kamsi's eyes narrowed as she scrutinized him. "I've been looking for my phone. Are you with it?" Bobby's heart skipped a beat. "It's a narrow escape," he murmured to himself. Both of them started searching for the phone, and Bobby stealthily slid it under her blanket. "Here it is," he said, feigning surprise when they found it. Kamsi snatched the phone and checked it quickly. Satisfied, she sighed in relief. Bobby took this moment to press further. "You haven't told me about JJ and what you really need the money for. I called your husband and asked about Kayla. He said she's fine. I was just showing concern." Kamsi's face flushed with anger. "It was a mistake to ask for your help. Why are you trying to know every detail about me? Am I a kid? Why are you so particular about the name JJ? Do you think it's only your grandson who has that name? Bobby, stay out of my business." Bobby remained calm. "I noticed you're in trouble. I can help if you're ready to tell me the whole truth." Kamsi burst into tears. "If you had given me the money on time, I wouldn't be in trouble now. My situation is beyond what you can help with, so leave me alone." As they were talking, Bobby's phone rang. He answered it, and his face grew pale. "Your mom, Mrs. Tawler, tried to escape from prison, but was arrested by the police. She's in custody," the voice on the other end informed him. Bobby and Kamsi gazed at each other in shock. The room fell silent.
Joy's case.
Tony's patience was wearing thin. "1 month is too long, Joy. If you don't return my money immediately, I will report you to the police." Desperate, Joy pleaded, "Just give me my phone. I can make a call and arrange something." Tony eyed her warily, but handed over the phone. Joy immediately dialed Jack, who was at the hospital with his wife, Sasa. Seeing Joy's call, Jack ignored it, focusing on his conversation with Sasa. "Jack, pick up your phone," Sasa suggested, sensing his distraction. "We can continue a conversation afterward." Reluctantly, Jack stepped out of the room and returned Joy's call. "What do you want, Joy?" he asked, irritation clear in his voice. "I need a favor," Joy said, her voice trembling. "I need 350 million naira within 48 hours. Jack was stunned. 350 million. Are you insane? Joy's tone hardened. "If you don't give me the money, I'll make our affair public in 72 hours. Jack's mind raced. His life was already complicated with Sass's condition, and now this. "I don't have that kind of money, Joy," he replied, his voice low and controlled. "Then prepare for the fallout," Joy threatened before ending the call. Tony, who had been listening intently, smirked. "Robbing Peter to pay Paul, are we? If you don't want to face the law, get me my money or get me my child." Joy's eyes widened in panic. "I'll get you the money. Just give me a little more time." Tony shook his head. "Time is something you're running out of, Joy. If you can't pay me back, you'll face the consequences." As Tony walked out of the room, Joy felt a wave of dread wash over her. She had no intention of going to jail, but the deadline seemed impossible. Her mind raced as she tried to think of a way out.
At the police station.
Inspector Pella leaned back in his chair, a satisfied smile playing on his lips. The recent turn of events had finally started to unravel the tangled web surrounding Dr. Sass's poisoning. He stared at Nurse Joyce, who sat across from him, her face streaked with tears. Joyce sobbed, her shoulders trembling, but she said nothing. "Look," Pella continued, leaning forward, "the game is over. I can only help you if you tell me the whole truth. Who are you working for, and why did you want Dr. Sassa dead?" Joyce's sobs grew louder, but she remained silent. "Joyce, I understand you might be scared," Pella said gently, "but cooperating with us is your best chance. Trust me, you don't want to go down for something you were coerced into." Joyce finally voiced out, her eyes filled with desperation. "I didn't want to get involved," she whispered, but I was afraid of losing my job. Pella nodded, encouraging her to continue. 10 months ago, a man came to the hospital, Joyce explained. He said a doctor wanted to speak to me. I was shocked when I realized it was Dr. Anna on the other end of the call. Pella's eyes narrowed. Dr. Anna. Yes, Joyce confirmed. She said she needed my help as payback for the job she gave me years back. If I failed to carry out the task, she threatened to take away my job and kill me. Who is Dr. Anna? Pella asked, his curiosity piqued. Dr. Anna was a staff member at International Hospital, Joyce replied. She was arrested and jailed alongside Mrs. Toller, Sass's grandmother, for collaborating and giving a fake DNA test to Sass's parents, which led her father to disown her. Pella's eyes widened in surprise. This case is getting more interesting by the minute. The man who brought the phone to me that day is named Martins, Joyce continued. He told me what he wanted me to do, and he would come around at intervals to launch the attacks himself. Before Pella could ask more questions, his phone rang. He held up a finger, signaling Joyce to wait, and stepped out to take the call. Inspector Pella returned to the interrogation room, his face grim. Joyce, we've received some new information. It appears Mrs. Toller attempted an escape from prison and was caught. Can you tell me more about her connection to Dr. Anna? Joyce wiped her tears. Mrs. Toller and Dr. Anna were close. They both had a vendetta against Sass's personality at work and home. Her grandmother hated her for her stature. Inspector Pella said, "You would tell me all of it, but that would be when I come back."
At the hospital.
Sassa was determined to get back to work despite her recent ordeal. Dr. Glory, the medical director who had come to check on her, smiled at her resolve. "We know your way, Sassa. Nothing keeps you down. It's a good spirit. Keep it up." Sassa, feeling reinvigorated, resumed her duties. She immediately made a call to check on JJ, her son, and was reassured that he was doing well and everything was under control. She promised to visit him the following morning. A few hours later, a nurse informed Sassa that someone was looking for her. She asked the nurse to send the person in. A man entered and said, "My name is Andrew. I'm one of the teachers at Bristol Montessori Nursery and Primary School. I'm here to tell you about JJ, your son." His expression was grave, which immediately caught Sass's attention. Sass's eyes widened, intrigued and concerned. "What do you need to tell me about JJ?" Andrew leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "I overheard a conversation that JJ is alive, and that he must be kidnapped today." Sassa couldn't help but laugh, confident that she had just spoken to the officials, keeping him safe. "I appreciate your concern, Andrew. Thanks for the information." Andrew shook his head urgently. "Please, don't take this information lightly. If JJ is really alive, you must protect him." Sassa responded, "Is there any other things you want to tell me?" Andrew nodded his head as he said, "I know the teacher who fed your child with the tomato. But please, for my safety, keep me out of this. Tell the police, but leave my name out." Sass's amusement faded as she recognized the seriousness in Andrew's voice. She quickly dialed Inspector Pella, requesting to officers to come to her office immediately. Within minutes, two policemen arrived and escorted Andrew to the police station to meet with Inspector Pella. 30 minutes later, she decided to call and check on JJ once more. Her heart pounded as she dialed the number. The line connected, but instead of the calm voice of the official, there was chaos on the other end. "JJ has been kidnapped," the voice on the other end replied, frantic. "It happened about 10 minutes ago." Sassa felt the world spin around her. She clutched the edge of her desk to steady herself. No, this can't be happening. I just spoke with him. How did this happen?
To be continued. Next on Mysterious Twins Part 8.
Inspector Peller called. Dr. Sasser, he said, his voice tense. We have apprehended the criminals. But I'm afraid there's more. One of your recruited members is the mastermind behind it all. Sasser's heart pounded. Who? She whispered, dread creeping into her voice. Inspector Peller's reply was clear and cold. Come to the station. You'll want to hear this in person. Stay tuned to find out who betrayed Sasser and the shocking reasons behind the kidnapping of JJ. Guess what? It's far beyond your imagination.
If you haven't watched the previous episode on the Mysterious Twins, I will drop the link in the description below.
Thanks for watching. God bless you. I love you all.